This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. This is episode number 406, and my guest today is John Martinez. Now, whether you know John yet or not, you're in for a very special treat today. John has evolved as the nation's leading sales trainer and really expert around all that is sales for real estate investors. And today he shares some amazing techniques with us so you can take your business to a whole new level. I'm not kidding. You're going to listen to the show over the next 30 minutes and improve your business. We all feel the competitive pressure across the country right now. Yet some investors are completely crushing it. Some are giving up. But what's the difference? Well, honestly, a lot of it has to do with truly being able to stand out with sellers that are talking to multiple investors and position yourself as the person that they want to work with more than anyone else. A lot of that, my friends, is a sales technique. Today isn't about lead generation. Today we're not going to talk about lead generation on the show. It's about converting more of the leads that you already have. As I like to say, squeezing more of the juice out of that fruit. Maybe the fruit's a little harder to find these days than it was in years past. Maybe you just need to squeeze more juice out of the fruit you already have. You're really going to love today's show. Please help me welcome John Martinez to the show. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on today. Always good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah.
I feel like we see each other all the time, but
yeah, it's funny. There's a group of us. Gary Harper's one. There's a bunch of folks that I feel like I'm talking to a lot these days. We're finding ways to work together and help each other. Of course, we're all in the Investor Fuel Mastermind as well, so that's one reason we see each other. But you and I have been talking a lot lately about it's a difficult market. It's a challenging market. Actually, last week on the show, I interviewed Jamie Woolley. And,
okay.
Talk about crushing it. Like she came in, she's only been an investor for 2 years. I don't know if you know that. She did 17 deals in 2016, 102 in 2017, and is on track to do over 150 this year. And I love talking about some of the stuff we're going to talk about today too, is you're in this market where a lot of people are tucking their tail between their legs saying, I can't compete. It's too hard to do this business and I'm giving up. And the truth is there's people that are crushing it here too. They're just not willing to make excuses and they're not willing to give up, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So today, for everybody listening, I'm excited to bring this to you because John's going to share some tips today on how to effectively squeeze more juice out of your fruit using sales techniques. So there's historically real estate investors we just thought I'm a nice guy and I like talking to people, and that makes me a good salesperson. And the reality is there some of that might be true. If you're a grouch, like nobody's going to want to talk to you. But there's some techniques that you can follow to do better. And I think that's really what we're going to talk about today. Is hey, the fruit's a little harder to find these days, but you can squeeze even more juice out of it if you know what you're doing from a sales technique and a process perspective. Does that sound about right, John?
Yeah, I mean that sounds perfect. There's so much focus as there should be on lead generation.
Yeah.
But in my perspective, that's half the battle, right? It's, hey, you have all the leads. You got to convert some of those things into deals. And if you're not, then you're losing time, money, and resources on developing those leads. So you've got to get some type of ROI, and that comes in the conversion process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. We don't really talk a whole lot about information marketing and online marketing here. What we do, obviously, we do some of that on FlipNerd. But in the info marketing space, the online marketing space, I had a conversation about a year or so with Justin Williams, who obviously does a lot of online marketing as well. And we were just talking about how the online marketing industry is a couple of years ahead of the real estate investors because they focus a lot more on conversion than real estate investors. We're just focused on leads, and we're like, just get me more leads. And it's a traditional sales guy approach, right? Yeah. The leads suck and I need more of them. And it's like, well, let's talk about conversion here because maybe you just need to work with what you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, John, before we jump into this, tell us a little bit about your background for those that maybe don't know you. I don't know if there's many people that are listening now that don't know who you are, but if there are, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, no problem. Sales background, been in sales my whole life. Started telemarketing. My first kind of real sales gig was selling insurance. Worked my way up into management with that company, ran an agency, recruited, trained, managed salespeople. And my career took me, up into corporate America, into software and IT. Always in sales though, always, director of sales and marketing or VP of sales. And so it was always around training salespeople, hiring salespeople, recruiting salespeople, motivating salespeople. So my whole career at very different levels as it progressed has been all about sales. And a few years ago, probably going on 4 years ago now, my attention was kind of turned to real estate investment, and we've been all in this industry for the last 4 years, just knee deep in it.
And it's sorely needed. This industry historically, there's some interesting things going on with technology in this industry. Of course, like Flip Nerd, like we've done things to like bring people together that are knowledgeable, guys like you. But I think this industry is so fragmented. It's so many individuals that are out there, and if you're not part of a mastermind, or you're not you didn't come in under a coach that's well connected or whatever, people are just having to kind of figure it all out themselves in their own silos all over the country, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this industry is ripe for some improvement, whether it's sales techniques training, marketing improvements, stuff that like Trevor is doing in Investor Carrot, bringing people together so they can have a nice website without having to have any technical experience whatsoever. Yeah. And so it's cool to really see how things are transitioning here.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too. Because kind of like you were saying how on the marketing side or technology side, real estate investment is a little bit behind info marketers in the education space. Yep. I think the same has been true to a certain extent for the sales training. As I came into this industry from the outside world, a lot of it seemed to be just some stuff was really effective, but some stuff was a little outdated, and we knew it was outdated. So I think we're catching everyone up in that aspect as well. Just stuff that we've been doing in other industries that we know works, right?
Yep. So today we're going to talk about really conversion, right? So we're not going to spend time talking about generating leads. We've got this is episode number 406. I promise you, we've got at least 50 other episodes on lead generation and the importance of lead generation. But today we're going to assume you already got those leads, and what do you do next? So John, let's say that after a lead's been generated, let's kind of take it from there, and we're going to follow this whole episode. We're going to get all the way to the end of kind of getting a contract, and if not, then following up in the process. But let's talk about improvements from the time a lead comes in. Let's talk about what folks that are listening right now can do to optimize that and taking it to the next step, which is getting a chance to meet with a person or have a sales kind of meeting, right?
Yeah. So I think you nailed it. There's really, the way I see it, Mike, is there's three potential conversion points in this process. So you're generating leads. So obviously when that lead comes in, and this is what we'll talk about first, you want to convert that to some type of next step. That might mean if you sell over the phone, it might mean extending that phone conversation and having the whole sales call. For most investors still today, though, it's going out there and meeting face-to-face with a person and walking a property. And then, if you're walking the property, then the next possible conversion point is this going to turn into a deal? And it either does or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, the next potential conversion point is in the follow-up, bringing them back into the funnel. So starting out with, how do you optimize that initial lead and turning it into some type of next step? So, just from a high level, very practical, usable, actionable advice is, first of all, I think you just got to realize what kind of state of mind these people are in, what they're worried about, what they want to accomplish. And if you take that mindset, you can have a much better conversation that's going to convert to something. So real quick, you got to think, what do these people want? What are they thinking? So first and foremost, they got a problem, right? They want to sell a house. So at a very high level, they want that problem solved, right? So the first thing a real estate investor has to do is realize, okay, on this very first contact, I have to make them feel like I've got the tools, resources, or the know-how to solve their problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And if the investor is able to convey that message that, hey, we do this a lot. I'll walk you through this. If I can help you, I'll point you in the right direction. Just give a lot of reassurance. That's going to also help the prospect convert to a next step, not only because they think they can solve your problem, but because they're more likely to take that step instead of reaching out to someone else. I mean, if you've ever thought about it, I like to think about it like the old Yellow Pages or a Google search nowadays, right? But I remember back in the day when I had a problem, I'd open up this was a while back, and I do it on Google now, but if I had a problem, I'd open up the Yellow Pages, and I'd start to dial. And if that first person doesn't pick up, what do I do next? I just go to the next one. And I'm dialing until I feel like, all right, I got a hold of someone. They're going to send someone out. They're going to solve my problem. They know what the issue might be.
Exactly.
And I stop calling. So rule number one is have the mindset that I've got to let these people know, hey, whatever problem you have, we're well equipped to solve it. I'm happy to do the best I can for you.
If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more.
And I'd start to dial. And if that first person doesn't pick up, what do I do next? I just go to the next one. And I'm dialing until I feel like, all right, I got a hold of someone. They're going to send someone out. They're going to solve my problem. They know what the issue might be.
Exactly.
And I stop calling. So rule number one is have the mindset that I've got to let these people know, hey, whatever problem you have, we're well equipped to solve it. I'm happy to do the best I can for you.
Yeah. And like you said, and like what we teach too is on top of that, speed matters, right? You got to get to those. If you have internet leads coming in or you're not answering your phones live and it's going to voicemail or a call center or something else, like somebody has to convey that message. If it's not you, like as fast as possible. Otherwise, like you said, John, they're just going to call the next person and the next person and the next person until they feel like I not only contacted somebody, but I feel like I found somebody that can really help me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the data from sales or InsideSales.com, their data says that if you contact within the first 5 minutes after a lead's received, then you're 9 times more likely to convert that lead to the next step.
Wow.
So, I mean, 9 times. I mean, it's huge. So sub 5 minutes is the best practice we always preach.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you get internet leads, like I know what we do, we have our leads. I have an email address set up just for internet leads on a Gmail address. And I have it on a cell phone. So that cell phone's connected to the Gmail address. And we have a setting set up to where it'll ding if we get an email, which I don't do that on my personal phone. I would go crazy. I get hundreds of emails a day. But on a lead phone, a money phone, it's like ding away. Like we want to hear those things, right? So I just tell my folks when I train them, treat an email lead like the phone is ringing. Like it dings, pick it up and call it back like right now, because you know what that person's doing right now? They're clicking the next one down. They're clicking the next one down. They're filling out forms. So you got to stop that. You got to stop that process.
Yeah, and even to take it a step further, right? If you've got an email lead, then you probably have their email address and you got their phone number, which means you can set up different automation. So an email automatically goes out that says, hey, listen, I got your lead. I'm on the other line. I'm going to call in just a minute. Right. That'll buy you some time. And you can do similar stuff with text messages and things like that too.
Sure. Yep. So after you get that lead, you've conveyed to the person that, hey, I'm here to help you and I'm capable of helping you. Where do you go from there in terms of appointments? In terms of the next step, which is appointments.
Right. Yeah. So to the next step. So usually on those calls, you want to just really talk about, hey, what can I do for you? Let them say their piece. We have plenty of experience in that. Happy to help you. I like to end those calls by explaining our next steps. So one thing that will keep people from converting to that next step is if they don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So where I see a lot of investors kind of fall down and lose some potential leads is when they just say, hey, let's set up an appointment, but don't explain what's actually happening on the appointment. So
right.
This is super simple and easy, but you will drastically increase conversion rates if you explain what happens on that appointment. So to convert to that next step, you want to say, hey, listen, here's what typically happens in these situations. Our next step is we send out Joe. Joe is an awesome guy. You'll love him. Joe's going to walk the property, or I'll walk the property. Just kind of take a look at the condition so I can give you my very best offer. You always want to phrase everything to their benefit, right?
Right.
So I can give you the very best offer possible. And then I'm going to also relieve some pressure, any sales pressure they might be feeling. Like, is this guy going to hard sell me into something? By finishing that up by saying something like, so we'll take some pictures. I'll have an offer for you. Hey, if you love the offer, we can figure out what to do next, what the next steps would be. And if there's anything that, doesn't feel right, if timing's off, if the offer wasn't what you were looking for, no problem at all, no sweat. At least we know we, kind of both gave it our best shot.
Right.
Right. I don't buy every house that I'm walking into, and I don't expect to.
Right.
So setting those expectations with a little pressure relief at the end will help you increase those conversion rates to that appointment.
Yeah. And it's relieving pressure to say that I'm not going to get the hard sell. It's also a little bit of a takeaway, right? You're kind of like, I might not be able to buy your house. I might not want it, right?
Absolutely. Because your general demeanor the whole time needs to be just like that, Mike. It needs to be a little bit, not as enthusiastic as the prospect, right? You need to be a little bit reluctant, not too much, but just enough to relieve that pressure and it changes the paradigm. So they almost start trying to sell you the house instead of being reluctant and, pushing you away.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting when if you ever, and I'm sure you've seen this before, where we use that a little bit, and people say, "Well, aren't you going to buy it?" They kind of like start selling you a little bit. They're like, "Well, yeah. I hope so. Hopefully we can work it out." But yeah, when you start to do that little bit of that takeaway, sometimes people feel like not only do they have to guard themselves from being sold, they kind of come back and say, "Well, no, I want to be sold. Like, sell to me."
The whole paradigm shifts, and it makes it a much easier conversation, everything going forward.
Yeah, that's how I got my wife, by the way. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm that interested. I'm kidding, totally kidding. I had to beg her. No. So what's the next step after you? And I do agree with you. I think people that are listening to this you've probably had an experience before. When you were talking about this, it came to mind of we had our carpets cleaned at our house like a year ago, and the guy was so thorough. He just kept explaining everything, and I was like, even though I wasn't necessarily paying attention to hanging on every word, it was just like, I just need my carpets cleaned. But he was so like thorough in his approach that he really cared that I understood the process, that I was like, man, this guy, like at one point I started talking about real estate investing. I was like, I got to pull this guy away. This guy's a ringer, But yeah, I think that you're right. A lot of people, we sometimes forget. We get so caught up in the business of I'm a real estate investor. I'm buying houses. We forget that person's not a real estate investor. They've probably never even. This is probably one of the biggest decisions they've ever made in their life. And if you come off as more thorough, even if they don't hang on every word you're saying, they're like, they took the time and they just showed that they cared by explaining something to me, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, let me translate it for you. Otherwise, this is what they're hearing. Hi, I'm a complete stranger. Invite me over to your house. Right? I'm not telling you how long I'm going to be there or what's going to happen, but I may or may not end up buying your house. Like, who's gonna accept that appointment, right? So it's pretty obvious when you think about it in those terms. How to increase conversion rates by just simply explaining what the next step is.
Yep. And I'm kind of making the assumption, and I know a lot of folks buy on the phone. I teach and I practice where we actually go out and physically meet with people. So let's just assume, because I think most real estate investors are physically going on appointments. So let's make that assumption that the next step here for us is to physically go to the house and meet with the seller. So I'll let you kind of take it from here.
Yeah, so, I'd pick up exactly where we left off on the phone by explaining, number one, what the process would sound like. You don't want to take it for granted that they remember that phone call. They might have talked to 3 other investors, or it might have been a few days, or just life happens in between. So one of the best things to do to build rapport right away, when I'm talking to new acquisition agents and doing trainings and things like that, one of the biggest hurdles is they're like, I get there and I feel like their guard is up. So in order to help them take their guard down, go ahead and do it again and explain, hey, real quick, I know we talked about it on the phone, but here's how this goes down. I'm just going to do this, and at the end, no pressure either way, it's fine. And it's going to do a couple things. It's going to build a lot of trust, especially if they remember that last conversation, because when they hear the same thing over and over, they start to believe it and trust in it.
Right.
And also, it's going to allow them to, again, take a little bit of their guard down, because while you're in that appointment, I guess this leads to the next point. The next thing you have to do is that whole conversation. You're going to have a lot of conversation. There's investors that buy some of the houses they're able to buy, and then there's investors that buy almost every house that it's possible they buy. So the difference in between those who are kind of squeezing all the juice out of the fruit, as you put it, and those who are just squeezing a little bit, the difference is what the conversation is about. So the ones who are doing really well and just squeezing all the juice out that they can, their conversations are not about what they do or how they do it. Their conversations are 100% about the seller. What are you looking to do? What can I help you with? What's going to get in the way? What are you worried about with this whole process? If you do decide to sell, what's going to stand in the way of the move, or what are you worried about then? Kind of paint me the picture. Where do you want to go? Why do you want to go there? That's what their whole conversation is focused on.
Yep.
So good actionable items for that one is if you find yourself talking about yourself or what 2x4s cost and your construction technique or how a house is built instead of what they're actually trying to accomplish, you just need to, kind of realign yourself and go, okay, let's course correct. What can I do for you? What am I here to help you do? I'm a problem solver. The way I do it is with real estate. We can structure deals in a ton of different ways, but in order for me to help you the best I can, I need to know exactly, the best way I can help you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So just focusing in that conversation on them.
So John, let's go cover a couple different scenarios. One is an investor that's listening right now that has an office manager or an admin of some sort that's taking that initial call. They're a lead manager maybe. They're taking that call, and then an acquisitions manager versus just somebody that is answering their own phones and going on the appointments. Because one, it's obviously important that they're consistent. Right. If it's different people, if you're the only person, you should be consistent. I've found in the past that it's easier as a salesperson. I can go out and say some of the same things that the coordinator did because even though she told me everything, I pretended like I just want to make sure I understand the situation here and but maybe walk through those two different scenarios for folks that are listening that have an admin or somebody different that's taking the leads versus the acquisitions manager.
Right. So honestly, there's not a lot of difference between it. I'm going to recommend the same process no matter who takes the call and who goes on the appointment, right? Okay. The same type of conversation, the same setting expectations on the phone, the same setting expectations when you show up at the door. That doesn't change regardless of who goes. So I guess the caveat there is, hey, if you are setting up your own appointments, don't feel like you don't need to set expectations again when you get to the door. You absolutely have to. And then just, the higher level of make sure you and your if you have someone else doing that, an account manager or lead manager or admin assistant, make sure you are on the same page. Make sure they know exactly what you're going to do and say when you get there. I would even encourage cross-training them a little bit. So in our sales training, we have tons of people who record their sales calls. And then what I encourage them to do is, hey, when you bring on a lead manager, they don't know what these appointments sound like or what happens. So let them listen to a couple of the actual sales calls, and then they're going to be much better versed at talking to your client or prospective client of what's going to happen. So I guess the bigger picture is don't operate in silos. Make sure your lead manager knows what whoever is going out there does and vice versa.
Right. So the next step is you get out there, and what's the next step? Where do we go from here?
Well, so we want to have the right conversation with them.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to give an offer. And there's, when you give the offer, I'm trying to really think, what are a couple of just key points that can really move the needle by implementing something super simple? So everyone's going to end up giving an offer. Here's what I recommend, though, the way you leave it. I think this will... Anyone who's out there running appointments, if they implement this next thing, they will win more deals. Absolutely guaranteed.
Awesome.
I've been doing this long enough. So don't take a maybe or a think it over. So I'll tell you why. So many investors are going to end a sales call with giving an offer, and then there's going to be some form of, well, let me think it over. Let me run it by this person, right? I would venture to say that most investors 80-90% leave appointments, and that's how everyone ends, right? Yep. Not a yes, not a no, but probably 90% or so, some form of a maybe or think it over. So what I'm going to encourage everybody to do is no longer accept those. Now, that doesn't mean you got to be a jerk. It doesn't mean that you're mean about it. I'll even give you the verbiage for it. In a very nurturing way, what you want to do is explain that if it's not a yes, it's a no. And I'll tell you why we want to do this. The reason why we don't want to leave it as a maybe or think it over is this. Two reasons. Number one, this is a huge decision, right? And most people, when do they make a huge decision, a huge complex decision? Do they make it when they have to, or just when it pops up, right? When they have to, right?
Right.
So you want to give them a have to. Sometimes all people need is that little nudge, right? If you have the right conversation about, hey, how can I help you? What's going on? And then you say, hey, if it's not a yes, after everything we've talked about, we probably just need to call it a no.
Right.
If you're not 100% confident that this is right for you after, what we discussed, then let's just call it what it is. We probably don't need to move forward.
Yep.
Sometimes that's just enough of a nudge for them to say, it's the takeaway like you're just talking about, right? For them to go, no, this is something I got to do. That alone will win deals.
Yeah, absolutely. When do you set that expectation, John? So you don't wait until you give the offer to say, hey, I either need a yes or a no, or if you don't say yes, then it must be a no. You're setting that expectation up probably when you set up the appointment and maybe even again when you get to the appointment, right?
Bingo. Yeah. So again, you're setting up that appointment. It's, hey, I'll give you an offer. If you love it, we can do the paperwork, happy to. And if not, then, we'll consider it a no. And at least we gave it a shot. Then you show up at the door. It's the same thing. Hey, just to, kind of recap so we're on the same page. Here's how this usually goes. We'll walk the property. I'll put together an offer. We'll chat a little bit. If you love the offer, we can put it in writing for you. We could go ahead and take some action on it. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, no sweat. I don't buy every house I walk into. We'll just consider that a no. And again, we'll know we gave it our best shot. So you're setting that expectation all the way through.
Sure. And of course, most appointments we go on, even if you're good like that, they're saying no, or usually, like you said, I'm laughing because I know I'm guilty of this. My team's guilty of this, of leaving and thinking, I don't know what they think. I think they're interested, but we don't really know. So we need to do a better job of this for sure. By the way, I'm excited to come to your training. I've been through training before, but coming to your training coming up here next month. So it'll be good to have some sharpen my saw, if you will. Yeah. But yeah. So then the follow up process starts, right? So we leave, and the next step is. And maybe you could talk about the transition, too, from leaving the place to the follow-up and what that looks like.
Sure. So, just to hit that one leads into the other. So let me revisit just for a second the really kind and nurturing kind of, if it's not a yes, it's a no. Real quick, the other point there was beyond just pushing them over the edge, giving them that little nudge they need, oftentimes if you do that right, sometimes there's this hidden objection, or we call them deal killers, and that's when it pops out, right? When you say, hey, we just got to call this a no, and that's perfectly okay, no hard feelings. It's just, if you're not confident in a yes, then, we obviously can't go around leaving open-ended offers to every house we visit.
Right.
Oftentimes that can bring up the deal killer, the one thing holding them back, and you will hear these words, well, I didn't say that, it's just that, and then you can oftentimes deal with that thing and bring the deal to fruition. Now, the other reason why it's important to do it, this goes into the lead follow-up. The other reason why it's important to leave it in that aspect, in a very kind, nurturing, if it's not a yes, it's a no, is this. Let me give you just this scenario.
Yep.
So if you are let's say you're in a car lot, right? I always use car sales because it's like the quintessential sales experience. But let's say you're in a car lot and you don't do a deal, but the sales guy just pours it on thick, and it's high pressure. They got your keys because they did they appraised your car, and you got to beg for your keys back, and they're not letting you out of the place. Finally, you get your keys, you get out of there. It was a horrible experience, and then he follows up, or you see that name on the caller ID of the car dealership, are you going to even pick up?
No,
right? So when you leave it in that nurturing way, when you give them the no, hey, if it's not a yes, it's a no, and that's okay. And we're still pushing to close then in a different kind of way, but
right.
It ends up being a no. Do you think they're more likely to take your call then when you
Sure.
gave them the no, or
Yep.
if they kicked you out? Right?
Yep.
So that leads into more effective follow-up by finishing up the sales call that way.
Yeah. Because I know your approach is kind of like, oh, geez, I was really hoping to help you here today. It's not like, well, screw you then if you can't. You know what I mean? It's like you got to leave it, because we all know that a lot of the deals come from follow-up, right? The majority of my deals come from the follow-up process.
Absolutely.
So you've got to make a smooth transition there and not leave where somebody doesn't ever want to see you again.
Yeah. When you use the yes or no, but no's okay, you're going to close more deals on that first call than you would otherwise, but then it also makes that follow-up more effective.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about the follow-up conversion. How do we get them back into the pipe afterwards? Just a couple of quick things. I always recommend, usually just know this. Going into a follow-up, more times than not, I'd say 3 out of 4, it's the deal didn't happen for one of two reasons, okay? There wasn't enough motivation, or there was a hidden deal killer, a hidden objection, something they were scared of or uncomfortable with. So going into follow-up, those two things should be in your mind. Number one, I either need to build more motivation by talking about their problem or whatever they want to accomplish, or number two, in my follow-up, what I need to do is uncover that deeply hidden fear or objection or concern and bring it to the surface so we can see if we can deal with it. So first of all, most people during the follow-up go, what do I say? What do I need to accomplish? That's it. We're increasing motivation, or we're uncovering that hidden deal killer. Now, 3 out of 4 times, from my experience, it's going to be the latter. It's not the motivation part. It's that there's something they're concerned about. Fear of leaving money on the table, not being sure if they're making the right decision, not knowing where they're going to go, maybe scared of a little bit of the risk and the discomfort associated with making a move or a deal like this. So usually on that follow-up, concentrate on either the motivation or uncovering that deal killer.
Yeah.
And you could go right after it. You don't have to beat around the bush. When I do follow-ups, I like to literally put it on the table and say, listen, obviously we didn't, make it happen, and I completely understand. I'm assuming that nothing's changed, but let me ask you this. Usually when we have the type of conversation we had, and, we talked about all the things we did, it sounded like you want to sell the house, but usually when you want to, but you don't, in my experience at least, and I could be wrong, it's because there's something you're uncertain of, something, a fear or something you're not comfortable with, or just, a next step you haven't figured out completely. Maybe you don't know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, or how certain things would work. Which was it for you? And then we're drawing out what's holding the deal back.
That's great, man. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I hope people were taking notes here. This is like killer stuff. Yeah. Maybe you can share a couple quick tips. We just got a couple minutes left here, but a couple quick tips on the follow-up process. So now you make that next call, which is obviously after you've left there. It could be a day later. It could be a couple days later. Probably has a lot to do depending upon how they left it. Like, they need a little time or whatever, or maybe they're like they need a week, or maybe they need 2 days or whatever. But how's that transition look like to where when you're following up, you're able to still have that same approach of trying to get them to make a decision without sending the message that you're ultimately willing to follow up forever if you have to. Because usually we probably are willing to follow up forever if we have to, but you don't ever want them to feel like, wow, they just keep calling me all the time anyway. Whenever I'm ready, I'll let them know. Like, how do you keep sending that message and doing the takeaway without it starting to feel like that it's not really going to get taken away? Right. So good question. So there's a lot of different approaches. First of all, never go into the call assuming that it's going to be a deal. You want to, again, relieve that pressure. So we just go, hey, I haven't heard from you. So, I'm assuming nothing's changed, or maybe you already sold the house to someone else. But I like to blame other stuff. So I'm just going to give you some of my personal, secrets, tips that I use. I like to just blame my calendar. So obviously, if you're in a follow-up sequence, if you're following up, whoever's doing the follow-up is going to have some type of reminder pop up in their CRM or Podio or their calendar or whatever. Yep. So I just blame it. I just say, hey, listen, I know we talked some time back. Obviously, you decided not to sell, which I completely understand. But I had a reminder pop up in my calendar just to touch base with you. And that's how I get back into it. I almost like I don't even remember why I'm calling or what I'm calling about, but I blame my calendar and just, hey, your name popped up in my calendar. I know I'm supposed to reach back out to you and just follow up or touch base. Just kind of give me a quick update. Did you ever end up selling the place? Yeah.
Oh, really? Then you're right back into that conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Another thing you can do to keep that sense of urgency is just ask for specifics. So what I mean by that is not that you're willing to buy any house, but you can call a month later and say, hey, listen, we're looking at that neighborhood again for a 2 or 3 bedroom, and I know you had a 3 bedroom. We're looking to buy in the next 1 or 2 weeks, 2 or 3 bedrooms in that neighborhood. So I thought I'd touch base with you to see if anything's changed or if there's anything we need to discuss. Yeah. So when you use specifics like that periodically,
right.
That helps keep that window short, but open up the conversation again.
Yeah, just coincidentally, we've said some things like we have another appointment. We're actually going to be in your area again tomorrow in your neighborhood. I don't know if it makes sense to meet up again and talk anymore about it, or
perfect.
Stuff like that. That's good, man. That's good. I've learned a few things from you, my friend. This is good stuff, John. Gosh, I sometimes at the end of a show I just say, well, hey, where do people go from here? But if you don't know where to go from here, you need to rewind the show and listen again. So good stuff. Hey, I know you've got an event coming up. I'm actually coming to it. I'm going to come as a student to your REI Sales Boot Camp. And I know, this is show number 406. We've got a ton of – this is only going to matter for people that are listening to it here in the next few weeks. But tell us more about the REI Sales Boot Camp and give the dates out too. In case it works out. In fact, I know you've got you might do some other ones, one more towards the end of the year, but maybe just tell us about the event and then how folks can learn more.
Cool. So we do a 2-day event called the REI Sales Academy Boot Camp. And basically what I have is a 12-week course, and it's just like a boot camp. We take that 12 weeks, and it's hardcore, 2 days. We have just all about the acquisitions process. What's that conversation sound like? How do we buy more houses at a deep discount? We have people in there who, big names like yourself, people who've been in the industry, people who coach others, people who've been doing so for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And we have people who, investors who've just hired on new acquisition agents, and they throw them in the room because they want some quick training. So it's always a really good group of people, a lot of good interaction. April 20, I believe it's 23rd and 24th. So this is 2018 is the next one coming up. We usually aim to do 2 or 3 of them a year, Mike. So there's always information about the upcoming boot camp on our website. We'll probably do another one sometime in the fall, maybe in August or September. That'll probably be the final one for 2018. But if you check out our website, there's always more. MidwestRev.com. You can always find the boot camp info.
Okay, MidwestRev.com, and we'll add a link down below for those that are if you're driving right now and you couldn't take that down. But we'll just look up the show. We'll have it in the show notes here. How about anything else you've got going on, John? If folks want to learn more about you, I know you've got a lot of stuff on Midwest Rev on your website, right? That's where everything's at.
Yeah. Just on the website, we do free trainings. We've got, sales management training that we have on there for free. So if you're an upper level investor and, hey, how do I hold my salespeople accountable? How do I keep coaching them to higher levels of performance? There's free training on that. We've got something called the 21-day sales challenge. So it's a daily sales tip or tactic or strategy that we give to you, one a day. Yep. Easy to implement. So we encourage people to implement one a day for 21 days and see what happened to sales. So there's just all kinds of stuff like that we put on the website.
A lot of resources. Yeah, we'll add that link down below. It sounds good. Well, John, thanks for spending time with us today. This is, a lot of times when I've been blessed to have a lot of great people, a lot of great new friends through the show. This is amongst the most kind of actionable type information that we could even have on the show. So thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, love to. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Good to see you, my friend. Everybody, this was show number 406 with John Martinez. Good stuff. John is really become the leader in the industry for training salespeople, or if you have salespeople that work for you, training your salespeople. There's some folks that just seem to send their teams to his events to be trained, and all you have to do is just make the decision to send them, be willing to make that investment. But John's a great guy. This is episode number 406. If you love what you heard here today, if you like the show, if you've been following us, if you want us to keep doing hundreds more episodes, I'd ask that you go give us a review and subscribe to us. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and even YouTube. You can go out there and show us a little love. We'd appreciate it. We'll see you on another upcoming episode. Everybody have a great week. If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. Real estate investing can be a lonely business for successful real estate investors, but it doesn't have to be. Investor Fuel members meet 4 times a year, but we talk to each other 365 days a year, and we focus on improving the profitability of our businesses, improving the quality of our lives. That's why we do this, right? And making an impact on those around us so we can truly leave a legacy. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet an elite member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed master class published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of master classes and other training videos. Elite members also get membership in our incredible online mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com/lab. That's flipnerd.com/lab. See you on the next show.